be warned, anyone with young children in the room.
Go to commercial! Go to a commercial!
What you're about to see
You okay, Jack?
is profoundly disturbing and shocking.
When I was a little boy, I would sneak downstairs in my home in Kansas, where I grew up, and it was a very conservative house where scary movies and late night television was forbidden. And I would sneak under the TV and put on our late night. We had a horror host in Kansas City where I grew up named Cremation Mortem, and she would tell jokes and do funny monologues and have all these prop gags. And then she'd introduce old, Vincent Price and Christopher Lee and, Lon Chaney movies.
Our Friday nightmare this evening is called The Projected Man, and it's a rather strange film. You may become familiar with the plot if you watch long enough.
That was my first introduction to late night television, the culture of late night television. And then as a little boy, I just remember watching, movie stars and musicians and athletes and animal handlers on shows like Johnny Carson and David Letterman. And I always loved shocking television. So I always would probably again, because it was such a conservative household where it was like anything that was racy or wild, I kind of loved as a kid. What was really powerful about the idea of getting to take on this role for me, not only the fear of playing a late night talk show host, but I've got this public persona as Jack Delroy, this person that's in front of the camera who's yucking it up and making people laugh and trying to capture people's hearts and make them stay on my channel. Don't turn the channel. We got to get those Nielsen ratings. But then as soon as they yell cut, as soon as we go to commercial, you have this intimate portrait of a guy who is losing his tether, a guy who is so scared of losing his dream, who's so unprocessed with his mourning of the love of his life, that to me as an actor, that seemed like a really ripe kind of vineyard to be going and plucking some grapes, You used the word rhythm, and to me that was the big fear. I speak with a cadence and a rhythm, and a lot of my characters, of course, sound differently than David. I've played the Polish sailor, I've played Russian the hackers, I've played like high-pitched, quiet guys. I've done a lot of different things with my voice, but something about the rhythmic cadence and the musicality of being a late night talk show, I can't do it right now. It took me so much to get in that space that I can't even just jump into Jack.
You hear these voices of the dead all the time. I guess the burning question is, how the hell do you get any sleep?
It's so hard. So what I did is I just started watching Dick Cavett, Johnny Carson. YouTube obviously is a treasure trove of all the old stuff that we want. And then Colin and Cameron, the amazing directors of the movie, they sent me the links and videos that they had compiled of Don Lane. It was a big late night talk show host in Australia back in the 70s, 80s. And I started watching Don Lane, just finding that, listening to it, letting it get in my ear the way that a musician who's getting ready to play a certain composer probably listens to that composer to get that in their ear.
This guy, I have never met him in my whole life. I have never met him, and I had no idea that he was even going to be available to come in here. I only read about him. I don't even know what to say to him when he goes out, but I'm so excited. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Bowie. Yeah.
As a theater actor, walking onto that set, Steph's costumes, our production designer's sets, the lighting, the way that everything was painted and laid out, it lent itself to the freedom of the performance, being able to really feel like I was living and existing on a TV show set. They wanted it to feel like we were really taping a live late night talk show. And so our DP, who worked really closely with our directors, did an excellent job of lining up shots in a way that not only captured what needed to be seen by the TV cameras, but it also caught a little bit more sometimes the way that you look at old footage of a 70s show and occasionally the microphone slips into frame or the edge of the set slips into frame and you go, those little details make it feel so authentic. And then as an actor, yes, they are long ass takes. Sometimes it's a 10-minute take. I love that though. That reminded me again of being on stage in Chicago. I'm talking to all three cameras. Sometimes I'm talking to the studio audience. Sometimes I'm talking to Gus or the band. And it was what a gift, I I was so scared shooting the first big long opening, that monologue, because I go, if I don't stick this landing, if this feels like an actor trying to be a talk show host, this movie is going to crash and burn. And I was backstage shaking like a little leaf. I was so scared. And then I got out there and I started doing it. And I could see the boys after that first take. They had this twinkle in their eyes. They just seemed so happy with the way it was going. And I trusted them. And I'm certainly glad that I did, because they're just wonderful. So the Satanic Panic was very real. I was raised to believe the devil was real, to be very afraid of the devil, that rock and roll music was trying to lure us. They used the term a lot in the evangelical communities in the States, and I'm sure they have it in New Zealand and around the world, but people would say things like the counterculture. They're trying to lure in the youth with their evil. And interestingly, as I grew up and I started to recognize that what was often branded as the evil counterculture was merely the others, was merely the people that didn't fit in or didn't belong in their, very strident, strict, kind of dogmatic criteria. And so it was weaponized against a lot of people that were just making art, playing music, being comfortable or brave enough to explore their genders, their sexualities, their place in society. And I was not until I was about 12, 13, 14 that I started to really question the fear that had been implanted in me. But it was very real. And it was at a time when like child snatching and cult sacrifices and secret societies were all, on the hushed lips of people and grown-ups. If a grown-up is telling you this stuff as a kid, it scares the living daylights out of you. They say that kid in town that wears makeup, watch out for him. He's probably part of a cult. I ended up becoming the kid that wore the makeup. And guess what? The only cult I'm running is the game nights that I like to play board games and making movies and eating pizza. Don't forget my comic books. They're very dangerous. Very dangerous. I loved the way that Colin and Cameron wrote the ultimate eruption. It's like a volcano. And one of my favorite filmmakers is David Lynch. David Lynch has this incredible gift at being able to bring to life on cinema the vibrancy, the strange dissonance of dream language. I have always believed that David Lynch kind of paints within the subconscious when he's laying out a film in sequences, and something about the way the film rises in its crescendo, to me, went down that pathway of the tradition of just now we're in full disassociative, explosive, psychotic breakdown horror. And it's a straight up nightmare that you could read and interpret whatever lens you as an audience member are looking at this film through. And it also, in a sense, reminded me of those third act bonkers, crazy, explosive finales you'd get from filmmakers like David Cronenberg or John Carpenter. So I was on for the ride. I felt like it was the kind of stuff I always wanted to be doing. I loved it.
Late Night with the Devil.